welcome to the Rumcast, episode 54. We've arranged a very interesting interview with some Rumcast veterans whose names you very likely know for this episode, but what we're talking about with them is a bit different than what you might be used to in the rum world. But before we get to that, let's check in with the man who some might call the vanilla to my passion fruit, co-host Will Hookinga. Will, how's your rum treating you lately?
I feel like that's a very insulting moniker. I have to be the vanilla and you're the passion fruit?
I'm definitely the passion fruit, Will. But no, vanilla is great. You know, we don't mean vanilla like, oh, vanilla. We mean vanilla as the spice, you know? It's a note that we get in rum so very often and we love it, right?
Sure,
so
that's
we love
always
the vanilla.
That's always what people mean when they describe something as vanilla. You're right. It's usually a good thing and not something that means bland and boring. But actually, you're right. Vanilla and passion fruit together is a combo that works quite well. We'll get into that a little bit later when we get into the interview. But man, I'm having a hard time recovering from that body blow of being described as vanilla. So you're just gonna have to tell me what's new, what's going on with you. I'm gonna recover over here.
You know, I guess if you want to be the basil to my pineapple, we can make that work. That's fine.
That works a little better. I feel like basil is a little more exciting.
But, you know, I guess you being a little frustrated by that is par for the course, because I have to say, Will, I'm pissed and I need to get something off my chest.
Got a vent?
Actually,
I got a vent session?
Yes, and it's rum related. So I
hope so. I hope you're not just about to unload a bunch of personal problems on the podcast.
No, I try to not do that as much. You know, if I'm generally speaking, that's not a good idea. But when it comes to rum, yes, I feel like this is a forum where I can be pissed about it and commiserate.
Let it out
with some people.
We all get mad sometimes.
Yeah. So let me set the table here for you. So I'm doing my normal thing, looking up rum stuff online and, you know, looking at new bottles and whatever, research for the show probably. And I come across this post on Reddit.
Okay.
And this post on Reddit is titled, quote, "Off topic, wow, rum is a shit show." Now, Will, before I get to what's in this post, it was posted on a subreddit that had something to do with whiskey. So it wasn't a rum Reddit post, and I'm not sure how the algorithm found me, but it did, and it got me upset.
Yeah, I figured it must not have been in a rum subreddit if I didn't find it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Not that I'm like constantly on Reddit or anything, but I check it every once in a while, you know.
Yeah. Usually I wouldn't want to read the whole thing here, but it's fairly short, and I think it sets the stage for us. So I'm just going to read a little bit of what's in this post so that we can commiserate here.
Rum is a shit show from the top.
So it says, quote, "Coming from whiskey, I ventured a bit into the rum sector lately, and what I learned there was truly shocking. It's completely normal to add massive amounts of sugar to the product without any declaration, and we're talking Coke levels of sugar here. Also, very common to add aromas, especially vanilla flavor, also without any declaration, and no, I'm not talking about spiced rum, but about, quote, real rum. So, what the fuck, rum? We in the whiskey world complain about food coloring, which is common in rum too, but that stuff is a whole other level. To sum it up, I guess I'll just stick to whiskey until they get their shit together."
So what are your feelings? What are your thoughts?
So here's why this gets me upset. Number one, we know it's not completely incorrect, right? Because there is an obvious issue here. We rum geeks know there are rums out there with high levels of sugar and additives, but we also know it's not all rum. And I feel like I take issue with the way the picture is painted here that makes it feel like the whole category.
Yeah.
It's the fact that I guess he dug enough into it to see the problem, but also not enough to get beyond it. Those things really just, it frustrates me, because this is the type of thing that I think stops rum from taking the next big step. And that people, whether it's in a whiskey or another spirit category, are venturing into rum only enough to be left with the quick impression that rum sucks and isn't worth their time.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say, like, I think we both want great things for rum. We want more people to enjoy it. We want people to appreciate, like, the best parts of it. Personally, I don't care if, like, every whiskey person ever comes to appreciate rum. I don't think they need to. I don't think rum needs them to in order to, like, validate that rum is good. It doesn't need the validation. Mm-hmm. I do think that what I would like to avoid are situations where people come into the category, whether they're an enthusiast of another category or they're a spirits novice, you know, and they have that experience where they run into something that they're sold something that they thought was something else, you know,
right?
Whether that is a questionable age statement or non-age statement on the bottle, but a number on the bottle that makes you think it's an age statement, or whether it's, a whole bunch of sugar in the rum that is not disclosed on the bottle, or, flavors or whatever kind of additives you want to talk about that's not disclosed. Yeah. I can understand why someone having an experience like that, where they buy something and it turns out to not be what they thought it was in a way that makes them feel tricked or duped. I can understand that making someone upset and angry. I agree that sounding off on something without really, I don't think it's entirely accurate to say rum as an entire category is a shit show, because there's plenty of producers that have taken like great strides in transparency, like things are happening. So I don't think it's the most accurate picture. And I think when you kind of like loudly sound off like that about it to a group of people who are spirits enthusiasts, it gives them the wrong impression of the category. But at the same time, I can't be entirely upset about someone reacting. Like I wouldn't go post something like that, but it's just, I almost never post anything on social media. So, it's someone venting. I'm not going to get all wound up about it, but at the same time, like I want more people to come to the category of rum. I want them to love it and celebrate it and not look down on it. I think rum is treated unfairly in a lot of ways. I do think rum deserves to be appreciated on the same level as something like Scotch, and obviously people who are already rum enthusiasts like we are do appreciate it like that. But I guess what I'm saying is, like, I don't need the validation of like bourbon connoisseurs, Scotch connoisseurs, or whatever. Like, I don't need them to think rum is great, because like I already know rum is great.
I don't think that's where I'm going. I think my frustration comes in, and by the way, I don't care that he sounded off about it as much as you do. Like, you're right, I probably wouldn't do that, but it doesn't bother me that this is the impression and he's posting his impression here. I guess what does bother me is that it does feel like it's actively other people who are seeing this may see this and be like, well, still not going to get into rum because clearly this seems to be the case. And that's what bothers me, is I don't need the validation of other people. I do want to see rum flourish, and I think these are the things that hold it back from doing it. I mean, the comments on this, there's like 75 plus, and I'm not going to go into those, but man, you read through those and it is disheartening. The beautiful thing about Reddit also is that you do get pushback from people in the comments who can say, hey, you're not looking in the right places, and that's fine and that's great. But it's just, it sucks to see that this was posted like, I don't know, this month, and we're still fighting these battles.
Right. Yeah. Right? It does kind of seem like the thing that you would hope you wouldn't see as often at this point. Maybe you'd see it like a couple of years ago or something, but it is kind of a reminder of there's kind of a long way to go in getting transparency like to the level that it needs to be at in rum.
Totally agree. And I guess that's a perfect segue to transition over to our topic for discussion today, which is about a rum that does have fruit in it, but is really, really transparent about it.
So transparent that you could see them floating in the bottle. Yeah.
Yes.
Amazing. So as you hinted at in the introduction to this episode, we had a couple of people, old friends of the Rumcast. We had Kate Perry and Johann Jobello, both of La Maison and Velier, on the podcast to talk about a brand that it was kind of unexpected to me to see them working with this brand, not because it's not a great product, and we talk about this on the podcast, but just because it's so different from the other types of rum and rum-related products that rum enthusiasts have come to associate with La Maison and Velier, whether it's, Transcontinental Rum Line or Hampton Estate, or, there's all kinds of stuff that's kind of like on the nerdier side of rum, the stuff that we love to talk about. But in this case, this is a brand called Arhumatic, and it was started in France by Clémence and Thierry Auger. And it's a Rhum Arrangé brand. And if you aren't familiar with Rhum Arrangé, it's basically a tradition of rum in the French Caribbean, and not just the French Caribbean, but also on La Réunion, other islands around the world, associated with France. Rhum Arrangé is basically, you take some rum, put some stuff in it, usually something like fruit, might be vanilla, something like that, and you let it sit there for a few months, and then you drink it. Also, sometimes people add cane syrup and stuff like that to sweeten it a little bit. And if you go to, Martinique, Guadeloupe, Réunion, like I was saying, I haven't been myself, but my understanding is you will see Rhum Arrangé all over the place. And so that's what this brand is. It's not coming from those islands, but this is a French company The founders of it, their background was in the grocery business, so they had this like really large knowledge of fresh produce and things like that. And basically, La Maison and Velier invested in the company, is helping them launch in the U.S. And so La Maison and Velier is now bringing all this intense rum knowledge to this company, and it's pretty interesting just because it's a style of rum. We usually don't talk about products that, and we get into like, I don't want to call this a flavored rum because when you
parsing the difference
exactly
there,
when you say flavored rum, it makes you think of the mass market bottles in the liquor store and stuff like that might not have the most natural process for flavoring them, whereas this is completely natural. Like you can see the fruit or whatever is in the rum like floating inside the bottle. And I think it's really interesting when you take something that is a cultural tradition in rum making countries and bring it to a market that has never seen it before. It's like, wow, like how do you guys do this? So we kind of got into all of that with them. Obviously, we talked about the production and like the different rums that they're now using in this. That was something that was really interesting to me because before this, my impression of Rhum Arrangé was that it was always Rhum agricole, which is not the case. If you go to Martinique and Guadeloupe, it'll usually be Rhum agricole, not the case everywhere else. And now La Maison and Velier is kind of like helping Arhumatic experiment with other types of rum beyond Rhum agricole in these bottles. So super interesting. I'm really looking forward to just getting people's reaction to this product. Kate sent us some samples, and at first I wasn't sure what to, how to use it. I was like, do I drink this neat? And I won't spoil it all, but we'll get into it during the episode. But one thing I will say is it was kind of a game changer when I realized that most people enjoy it chilled. That was not something that I tried at first. Yeah. And when I did that, it made a really big difference in my impression of it. It's almost kind of like, I would say it's akin to essentially like a bottled cocktail, sort of, is kind of how I was able to enjoy it once I chilled it. So anyway, I'll shut up about it because we talk, we get into all this stuff on the episode. But yeah, before we dive into it, anything that stuck out to you about it?
The biggest thing for me was just hearing about the amount of time poured into developing and almost curating, I guess you could say, these products, the combinations, the split and the blends of this versus that, and how they really set it up for success to be, like you said, a product that can be sipped on its own and really deliver on that. And just the bottles are beautiful. If you haven't taken a look at them online and looked at what they look like, I'm a bottle geek, I guess you would say. At this point, we can call myself that. And they are beautiful looking too. So that was my favorite part of just hearing about all the time and effort that's been poured into how these were blended and arranged in such a way to make them what they are and what you'll experience in the bottle. I think we can just take a quick break and we'll get back with the interview.
All right, let's do it. We are here with Johann Jobello and Kate Perry. They are Johann is the rum product manager and U.S. market coordinator for La Maison and Velier. Kate Perry is the national manager of the U.S. market, La Maison and Velier. And both are Rumcast veterans.
Yeah.
So I went back and checked. Kate, you were on the 8th episode ever of the Rumcast. It's been almost exactly 2 years since that episode was published.
How many episodes have you done in total?
This will be 54, right, John?
Cool. Yeah, 54, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel so honored.
Exactly. Yeah, it's great. And Johann, you were episode 41, so about 6 months ago. So
okay. Already 6 months?
Already 6 months. I know, it's crazy.
No, to be honest, I thought it was longer than that.
Yeah.
Maybe 1 year ago or even more. But
yeah,
okay,
it's wild.
Yeah.
So it's been a time warp, though.
Yeah, we are in a time warp.
Yep.
Obviously, people listening will know that we're here to talk about Arhumatic today, which is very fascinating. I'm really excited to talk about it. But obviously, you both do a lot of things with La Maison and Velier. So just what's been going on? What has kind of been your focus over the past few months? Catch us up on everything you've been doing.
Oh, man. So many fun things. We've actually Johann and I have been working really hard together because he's actually coming this summer for a real in-person live tour. So he gets to come hang out in the US with me for a week in July and then a week in August. So I'm really excited about that. We're focusing on the transcontinental range, which Johann has done such an incredible job rebranding. It has cool new packaging. We have some cool new expressions. So I think that's kind of been our focus lately, Johann, right?
Yeah. I mean, sure. I've been working on this for the 2021. So now we are able to release it. In fact, the bottles are on a ship right now, and
nice.
they should arrive today at
today, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, the bottle is on the ship, and the ship is on the bottle also.
We keep it meta around here.
So yeah, hopefully we should get it within a few weeks or months, depending on the congestion at the port. So Kate, you forgot to tell that we visit you guys also 1 month and a half ago. We came
that
to
feels
New York.
like forever ago.
We came to New York with the whole team. It was the occasion for us to do the launch of one of our artist whiskey range, which name is Artist. And in the meantime, we launched Version Française, which is our specific brand dedicated to French spirits. So far, we have been bottling some French whiskeys and some Arhumatic. And of course, it was also the occasion to speak about Transcontinental Rum line and Arhumatic, which is the main topic of today.
So kind of talking about Arhumatic here. Let's start with talking about, for those that are unfamiliar with what this is, which is a Rhum Arrangé, can you define that for us? And really, what is the difference between that, and a Rhum Arrangé, and a spiced rum?
Okay. So Rhum Arrangé is a product originated from the Réunion island in the Indian Ocean. So in fact, it's just a preparation of rum with macerated fruits, leaves, bark, or botanical. In fact, it's a true piece of heritage from the different islands where rum is produced. The Rhum Arrangé produced in La Réunion is different from the one in Martinique or Guadeloupe, but it's really part of the culture. I mean, I do come from Martinique and Guadeloupe, and my grandmother, my aunts, I mean, everybody is doing their own Rhum Arrangé. It's really something that everybody can do because it's really a tradition. If you compare it to a spice rum, I mean, it's kind of close because, for instance, in Jamaica, to my mind, they are more producing spice rum. They are not speaking of Rhum Arrangé. Spice rum, maybe also there is even more spicy. Also, maybe to my mind, less sweet compared to a Rhum Arrangé. But these are really, really, really close, really similar. And also, what I want to add to this is that in France, now we are not allowed to describe, for instance, Arhumatic as a Rhum Arrangé.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that. I saw that on the website and thought that was interesting.
And we are obliged to call it rum punch because Rhum Arrangé means that it's a rum, so it's the minimum ABV should be 37.5
in order to be labeled rum in the EU, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
And for instance, aromatics are around 28 to 30 ABV, so that's why they are obliged to call it rum punch, but everybody would speak about Rhum Arrangé. So legally, we are not allowed to describe it as Rhum Arrangé, but in the culture and everybody knows that Rhum Arrangé.
You know.
Use this term. So because punch rum means that you have also juice in it, and in fact, Rhum Arrangé is only a maceration of fruits or botanicals or both. So this is really the difference.
Right, which is a challenge, I imagine, because when you say a rum punch, that's what, like you said, people think about, is there juice in it? Is there anything else? But like you're saying, a Rhum Arrangé, as I can now pronounce correctly, hopefully, is just the macerated fruits and some of the spices, botanicals, like you said, that are added in there, and that's it, and that's where it kind of stops. You mentioned I wanted to talk a little bit more about kind of the origins and the history of it. You mentioned it was from the French islands, right? And can you both talk a little bit more about kind of that culture and where that began, and how much do we know for certain about its origins? Like, how far can you go back and see that this is something that's been in existence?
To be honest, I don't know for how long we can go back to this. I mean, I think that maybe since people they were able to produce rum, they started to do it because maybe, you know, in the past, the rum it could be sometimes harsh, and having some fruits and some sugarcane syrup, you would be able to drink it. I mean, to my mind, it's just simple as this. But if I have to make a difference between the Rhum Arrangé from La Réunion and the Caribbean, the rum used is not the same. I mean, in La Réunion, they will oftenly use a traditional rum, meaning a rum produced with molasses.
Mm-hmm.
When in the Caribbean, we will use more an agricole rum. So this is maybe the main difference between the two regions. But both, I would claim that they did it first. So yeah, people from La Réunion will tell you, this is definitely our product. But in the Caribbean, we do have this also this tradition. And if you speak also about spice rum and other stuff like this, I mean, everybody can claim that they were the first to do it. So
yeah, it's interesting when talking about like how stuff like this started, because I don't know exactly when it started either, but I feel like the more kind of rum producing countries, when you talk to people from there, there's some sort of tradition like this. Like if the place is making rum and there's delicious fruits and things growing nearby, like
play well together.
At some point a while ago, someone was going to combine them. Like if you go to Puerto Rico, you'll find people who have a very similar tradition. They don't call it Rhum Arrangé, but yeah, you'll find the same thing of macerated fruits being put in bottles.
In Cape Verde, they're also putting a kind of Rhum Arrangé using grog. Yeah, everybody, I think that everywhere that you can, where rum is produced locally, you will find something similar to Rhum Arrangé. I mean, everybody will do it their own way, but at the end, it's kind of the same product.
Yeah, I think that in the case of Rhum Arrangé as well, it tends to have a lot of fruit in it. Not always. We have one that should be arriving to market soon that is ginger and thyme citron, or lemon thyme, which is really delicious and can kind of be used almost like a digestif. It's really tasty after dinner. But if you look at, Dominican Republic, you have Mama Juana. In Haiti, they have Clairin Trempé. If you go to St. Lucia, and in my mind, St. Lucia is maybe more in common with Rhum Arrangé, just based on culture, because when you go to St. Lucia, everybody has a big glass jug of rum with stuff in it, right? Yeah. Everybody's sitting on, the street selling their own house recipe of rum with bark and botanicals and different ingredients that they've sourced locally, that they've soaked into their rum. And I think I haven't been to La Réunion, but I've seen it in the French Caribbean as well. And as Johann alluded to, it's very much a local thing that you make at home. You take whatever fruit is in season, you soak it into your rum, and it tastes delicious.
Yeah, and sometimes you can even have some Rhum Arrangés that are developed as a medicine. I have one bottle at home. It's called guériman in French, which means like healing the man, for instance. And as if it's a blend of I don't know, maybe 20, 30 different botanicals.
Wow.
And as if on the label, they will tell it, you have a headache, stomachache. I mean, if you have any hail, you just need to drink 1 spoon of it in the morning, in the evening, and after that, you will be okay. This is, I'm not sure it's true. I'm drinking it. I do like it.
I was going to ask if you could give us your personal success rate.
It's really tasty. But I mean, if I'm really in a bad situation, I will definitely go to the doctor.
So step 1 is if you're not feeling well, Rhum Arrangé. Step 2, go to the doctor. If that doesn't work, right?
No, it's interesting, Kate. You mentioned kind of I don't want to say necessarily like unconventional, maybe unexpected infusions or things going into these Rhum Arrangés. And one of the first things I noticed when looking at Arhumatic was I think I saw one that was all tarragon, and that struck me as something that I didn't expect, kind of very inventive. And you sent us samples, and I think the first one that I tried was like a basil pineapple one. And that stood out to me right away as like, okay, this is something like cool and kind of unexpected and, something different. And I think that's like an important distinction. We talked about this when we had the folks from St. Lucia Distillers on, because we wanted to learn a little bit about like the local spiced rum culture in St. Lucia, because I think most listeners of our podcast are in the States, and when they see, rum with something infused or added or whatever, they think of the mass market kind of spiced rums first.
Right.
Kind of like overlooking that most of these places where rum is being made have these like long cultural traditions around this stuff, and it's not the same as the mass market spiced rum that we're, all aware of the brand I'm talking about. But
Totally.
So that's why I think it's cool to get to learn about this stuff a little deeper. Johann, you mentioned kind of growing up in Martinique that this was very prevalent. It was around. You mentioned your grandmother made it. What were kind of some of the, did you have like go-to combinations or like fruits to use in your family? Was it always changing based on what's available? Like, do you remember a particular Rhum Arrangé that like really stands out growing up that you enjoyed the most?
No, I mean, we have like a really a normal approach, and we won't do kind of recipes as if there will be only maceration fruit by fruit. So you can have a ginger or Rhum Arrangé, or cherry Rhum Arrangé, guava Rhum Arrangé. Yeah, otherwise, people they will do maceration by maceration. You have a brand which is the Mabi Ponche. It's a Rhum Arrangé made in Guadeloupe by one mother and their two sisters. They will only use like local fruit and also like whole fruits that people no longer eat or consume, but they really wanted also, to let people discover this ancient fruit that people maybe sometimes they don't know them anymore. But by also producing this kind of Rhum Arrangé, it's also, to my mind, for them a way to introduce people to their culture. In fact, because sometimes we have lost also some memory about what people could consume in the past. And this is also a nice way to do the link between the present and the past.
Is it more common to find people sort of like making their own at home, or is there also a big market of people buying it from kind of local people?
No, local people they would do it by themselves, and the brand was being developed on the island. Most of the sales are for the tourists. But
gotcha.
Because for us it's so simple. Just right. Take some rum and some. It's just it's
kind of a two-step
as if
process.
You are doing a cake. It's kind of the same, and you can control the evolution. You taste it every 1 month. Maybe you have to add some sugar or some rum, and you just adapt yourself to the taste and to what you want at the end. So, for instance, I was talking about this brand, Mabi Ponche. There are also a lot of local people that are also buying it because it's really nice. And for instance, this brand it's also stronger in ABV because they are using a rum at 50 ABV. So the final product is around 35 compared to most of the products in the market, which are between 25 and 30. So this is the main difference. But what I wanted to say is that at the opposite, Arhumatic, they have really innovative approach, in fact, because they are really developing recipes that are quite uncommon. For instance, they did 2 recipes using roasted pineapple or roasted pear. So they will like cook the fruit before doing the maceration. And to be honest, before Arhumatic, I never heard about any brand doing this kind of Rhum Arrangé. So I would say that compared to most of the market, they used to be grocers, in fact, for 15 years. So, their knowledge is on the fruit and the vegetable. So this is really their approach. And so that's why they have been able to have really a single approach. And they are always doing the best fruits because, for them, the quality, the flavors, they want to have the perfect ripeness also. So this is what makes them really different to my mind compared to the market.
Well, you kind of stepped into what I wanted to talk about next, which is Arhumatic and how it is being brought out to market. So you've got this delicious product, right? You know about the culture. You've steeped yourself in it, so to say. Nice, no pun intended. And
very clever.
That was good. I liked that.
Just happens sometimes.
Don't encourage him.
And so you've got this now, and I guess I'm interested to know, how long did it take to develop the Arhumatic brand of Rhum Arrangé, and how did you all decide to bring that to market, and what's that process been like to bring this to a larger audience?
So Arhumatic was founded in 2014 by Clémence and Thierry Auger, who are still the owner of the company. So before doing this, they were for 15 years, they own a grocery store. So they were selling fruits and vegetables. And in fact, they started to doing their own maceration and selling, just a couple of bottles. They had a lot of success with this Rhum Arrangé. And at one point, in fact, they decided to develop this activity and to stop the grocery store and to really focus on the Rhum Arrangé. We have been working with them, I mean, as La Maison and Velier for 3 years now. To be transparent, La Maison Velier invested in Arhumatic in order to help them in their development. So, as I was saying, Clémence and Thierry Auger are still owning the company and managing it. So they are still responsible for all the recipe development. They are still doing all the fruit sourcing, also the rum. And now, as La Maison Velier and me specifically, I work with them on the rum sourcing, because most of their main recipes are using some agricole rum from Guadeloupe. Right. But for the limited edition, they started to do some tests. For instance, 2 years ago, we did a Rhum Arrangé including some Clara Casimir in it. Mm-hmm. It was the IET edition. Last year, we did the Jam Rock, which was including some Hamden rum also. Nice. I'm trying to help them on the rum sourcing, and because this is not their specialty, but they are always happy, to discover some new stuff. I mean, before developing the Jam Rock, they never tried any Jamaican rum. Right. So in fact, they have also another recipe, which is Rhum Arrangé, which is a blend of agricole rum and with some Jamaican rum, and yeah, it's really good. I don't know if you guys have been able to try it, but.
A sample of the rum raisin.
Yes.
And this is what makes really the difference between Arhumatic and the other brands. It's that they are really able to develop new stuff, and we are also really happy to help them to develop new recipes. And if it's sometimes just by using a different rum.
Yeah, it sounds like a perfect marriage. So you're like, hey, you've got all this cultural knowledge and you're doing a great job, and
the grocery background as well, working right. Like the knowledge of fresh produce and everything. Exactly. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I can tell you they are so knowledgeable in fruit. I mean, they can tell you we would select this specific mandarin from Sicilia because this is the best one, and we want to buy it at this specific time of the season. And if the fruit is not good enough, they won't buy it and they won't do the production. I mean, they are really focused on this. The fruit has to be selected at the best time and from the best destination also.
Yeah, I would be lost there because I think the only fruit I can consistently pick out at the grocery store at the right ripeness is like a banana. Like it's just like the most obvious one, If it's like a mango or a pineapple or something, it's just guesswork.
Good
for
luck.
Me. No, that's really interesting though, because when you were talking about, one of the things I was interested in was just how does Rhum Arrangé vary between like Réunion Island and Martinique and Guadeloupe, and so you brought up that on Réunion it's a lot of molasses-based rum, and so I was curious if you were is it just going to stick to the agricole rum in the blend or borrow from sort of other traditions and stuff, and so it's really cool to hear that you're also incorporating molasses rums like Hampton and things like that. So you mentioned the rum that's being used mainly in Arhumatic is a rum agricole from Guadeloupe. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes, okay. Exactly. And they are really attached to it. They do believe that the rum agricole is really specific among the others. So that's why they won't use a traditional rum, but the natural one. Because Hamden, even if it's made with molasses, it's definitely a specific rum with so much flavor. But I mean, maybe you have been able to try some rum from La Réunion. You have this famous brand, which is great to do some cocktails, some Rhum Arrangé, etc. But because it's a really natural rum, it enables you to have all the flavors from the fruit in it. But they manage with this agricole rum from Guadeloupe to have both this really sugarcane flavor from the rum, and also to let all the flavors from the fruit and the aromatic express themselves. So they really manage to have the perfect balance. But if you know how many tests they are doing before validating one recipe, and this is also a lot of work for them. Maybe sometimes they can do 20, 25, 30 different recipes. Sometimes it's just changing the amount of sugarcane syrup. So it can be, 1 or 2 grams of difference, and this will definitely influence the final test. So they are really doing a lot of try in order to have the perfect recipe, I'd say.
Is that research like I mean, are you years in, or are they years in this research at this point? Has it taken that long to develop and perfect, or has that been already kind of what they've worked on for years, and you're just bringing in this kind of new element and just perfecting, tweaking a little bit?
They are entirely independent on this. I mean, this is their knowledge. I mean, I'm definitely not a Rhum Arrangé producer. I can help them on the rum on saying, okay, I think that this rum could be a great match with your product because it's really different. And we are proposing them, we are sending them some samples, and then at the end they are deciding and they are developing the recipe. The idea is definitely not to influence them on this because, I mean, to say they are definitely more knowledgeable than us. So, and they are really still leading the company. They are still in charge of all the research and development. So they are really still doing it. They are really passionate about it. I mean, to my mind, this is maybe what they like the most in their job. So.
I mean, the website already, there's quite a few different combinations of flavors and things out there already. I was like super impressed to see how many there are. And then that led me to think like, how much experimentation was there? And I don't know if you all can speak about it or not, since it's more in the production side, but like, I was curious to know, were there other ones that kind of didn't make it yet, or are, like, not to say there isn't enough already because there's a lot of choices, but it's fascinating to me to see how it's kind of like this experimentation process of getting the right things in combination. Was there a lot more that you can talk about with the experimentation of it?
I can tell you that we are preparing a new recipe, including some Clairin Vaval.
Oh, wow.
This one is going to be great, including some banana fraissinet, the small banana, some carcadet, which is
hibiscus.
It's hibiscus. Thank you, Kate. And also some ginger. So it's really untypical. To my mind, this is really the main value is that they are able to develop some recipes that you would never dream of.
Yeah, I imagine it must be a really big challenge. And it's great to hear that they're continuing to experiment too, given that there's so much already. And I'd imagine scaling that up and how much you have to do with that, with the existing recipes you have, has to be really a challenge.
But it's still a small house, in fact, because as if they are still cutting all the fruit by hand. They are filling all the bottle by hand until now. And sometimes they can produce for one recipe. If I speak about the best-selling one, which is the passion fruit vanilla, you can imagine that sometimes they will receive 1,000 kilograms of passion fruit at the factory, and they will cut everything in one day because they want to use passion fruit while it's still fresh, and so they will cut everything in one day. And then they will fill one bottle by bottle. This is amazing.
I was going to ask, like, how, because I've talked to other brands before that are selling something commercially that has fruit put inside, and I've heard it can be really challenging to figure out like the right shape to cut stuff into, and then like how to do it in a way where it's not insanely time consuming. So like, how do you take something that you said like starts out in a house all by hand? How do you kind of scale that up, or do you even need to? Can it stay like that?
They are growing. They are growing. I mean, the last couple of years, they have been growing really fast. So for this summer, they will extend the warehouse and the factory, but it will still remain done by hand, in fact, because they want to treat the fruit with respect, because at the end in the bottle, the fruits need to look well, in fact, because the taste and the aspect, the look of the bottle, they are both important, and they really want to respect the fruit. So of course they are growing, so they are also hiring more people in order to be able to produce more. So some stuff maybe build some tools to do it. So for instance, to pour the rum into the bottle, I can imagine that you can have a machine to do it. But for the fruit, they will still cut everything by hand. They are washing all the fruit by hand and cutting them, and they will remain like this because this is for us the best way to maintain a high quality.
You hear that, Will? He said the look of the bottle is important.
I'm right there with you.
That's a Will and I thing where we fight over a little bit.
We just have very different tastes in which bottles look great and which ones don't look as good. But we can leave that for another conversation. I will say,
I want to see your top 10 lists.
Well, I will say,
independently.
I will say one of my personal favorites that I always love is the Hampton packaging. Those bottles are some of my favorites. I love the labels. Actually, I have a bottle of the Overproof, the one that, as I understand, will be disappearing soon. I just got a bottle of that, or not disappearing, but evolving, changing.
Keep one case for you. Keep one case.
Yes, yeah, exactly. But no, just I was looking at the box and just like the bright colors. It's just that's my happy place.
That's his jam.
But going back to the fruit sourcing, so they have this background as grocers, so I'm sure they know all the best places to source these fruits. But my understanding is also that it's kind of like there's a seasonal component to this product.
Yes.
They're not. Are there certain ones that they can do year round? Like, can you get great passion fruit in France year round, or how does the planning work for that? And how do you manage that consistency with also a variety of seasons and stuff?
No, it's a great question. So yeah, some recipes are able to produce it the whole year because they will change the source. So the passion fruit, they are able to buy it almost all the year, and depending on the time of the season, they will change the source. But if they have a recipe which is kiwi, pineapple, and mango, this one they can produce it only 2 months a year.
Okay.
And the idea is for them because this is the right time to get the best mango, the best pineapple, and the best kiwi, and they won't do it at another moment because they could do it and source and get the fruits, but they are not good enough for them to be used for the Rhum Arrangé. So that's why they are only producing it 2 months a year. And depending on the recipe, the fruits, unfortunately, they are not always able to sort them locally. But botanicals, the herbs that they are using also in the recipes are always freshly cut and from a local source. So when it's possible, they are doing their best to source the product locally. But passion fruit, it's difficult to grow it in the north of France. So that's why this ones are obliged to buy it from the book.
So something like the basil pineapple, for example, maybe the basil could be sourced locally, whereas the pineapple would likely come from somewhere else.
Yes.
Yeah. And that seasonality also ties into something I was also kind of thinking about as I was perusing the website a little bit. And there is something on the website that says, unlike regular rum in a glass bottle, it says the longer you wait, the better your elixir will get. And now we know elixir is a good word, right? Because it could be medicinal even.
Right, yeah.
So I get why that is, obviously, because the fruit that's in the bottle there, that's actually physically in the bottle, will continue to interact with the rum over time. I also kind of thought that, wow, that's an interesting challenge from a timing perspective.
Yeah.
Because now with respect to when you bottle it, it's going to, sit a little bit in logistics of getting to where it needs to go and prior to purchase. So I guess the follow-up there is, how do you really measure when it's best to bottle that? And I guess there's a follow-up question, could it sit too long? Is that possible?
No, you can't stay too long because all the recipes are really, they have to follow it perfectly. And at one point, in fact, the rum will have absorbed all the flavors from the fruit. So
reach maximum capacity.
The evolution will stop. But for instance, you shouldn't let some cinnamon in your Rhum Arrangé for too long because at one point the cinnamon will dominate everything. For some spices, you shouldn't let them the whole time. But for instance, they have a recipe including ginger. Kate was mentioning it previously. They are like cutting really thin slice of ginger. So in fact, maybe in 6 months, there is no longer any ginger flavor to get from the slice. So the maceration stop.
Yeah.
But they will always tell you that you need at least 1 month and a half, depending the recipe, for the bottle to be ready for consumption. And after this, you can keep it, and there is no problem.
I guess I have a follow-up on that about how that exactly works. So you mentioned the process a little bit of how it's done and that they're doing all the cutting and bottling by hand, but is it made in batches and then it's bottled, or is
No, all the maceration is done directly in the bottle.
Got it. So it's you put the fruits in the blend in there in the bottle, you put the rum in the bottle, and bam, that's the magic happens.
Exactly.
Which goes first? Does the rum go in the bottle first, or do the fruits and stuff go in the bottle first?
That's a good question.
Good question. Do you remember when we visited them?
It's the rum. I I had the opportunity to go and visit in December with Johann. We took the train up to Lille. Am I saying that right? Lille?
Yes, exactly.
Lille. And it was such a lovely day. We went and visited the production and met with Thierry and Clémence, and I was completely blown away. I'd seen the bottles before, I tasted them before, but I think that when you hear that something is done by hand and then you walk into a room with people picking up every single mango, looking at it, washing it by hand, skinning it by hand, cutting it by hand, putting the exact amount weight into each bottle by hand, it shocked me because in America, I guess I just assume that everything is kind of industrialized and automated.
Right.
And when I see packaging like this, I think something different. But then the care that I saw, making sure that every piece of mango that went into the bottle was perfectly cut, it very, very much surprised and delighted me. And I recall, to answer the question, that there was rum in the bottle on the table as they were putting the mango slices in.
Okay. Probably totally inconsequential, but I was just curious once I started thinking about it.
Really, but the other thing that really struck me is how good that room smelled. I mean, if you could imagine yourself in a room filled with people hand slicing mango at the peak of season, like it was intoxicating.
I mean, even if I'm just like in the kitchen, like slicing a lime to make a cocktail or something, I'm like, God, it smells so good, you know? An entire room full of perfectly ripe mangoes. So were they working exclusively with mangoes the day that you were there? Were they doing anything else?
They were slicing mango. Yeah.
That's a good day to be there.
Yeah. It was a really good day.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were lucky.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like, maybe like a geeky kind of businessy question, but I'm sure this is something that dovetails with y'all's day-to-day jobs a lot. You were speaking earlier to, in France, you know, you can't necessarily call it a Rhum Arrangé because of the ABV. It has to be called a rum punch, right? And I know sometimes in the US, if something has a spirit in it, you know, whether it's rum or whiskey or whatever, and there's some sort of infusion or something where it doesn't quite fit into the category, it kind of gets shoved over into a different section of the store. It's not like right by where all the rum is and stuff like that. Is that a challenge that you have encountered or that you anticipate on encountering? And or am I just like imagining it and that's you're not worried about that?
I think that's a good question. I think that, you know, we have our own special circumstances in the U.S. here. You know, calling it rum punch in the U.S., I think, kind of connotes a different idea of what, you know, we think rum punch is. And I definitely was afraid that if we called it that here, it was going to end up, you know, with the big jugs of rum punch that are
Kate just used air quotes.
And you know, like that rum punch color, that kind of like murky sunrise, orangey red. So I really didn't want it to end up there. So, you know, Johann and I talked and we said, you know, let's not use punch au rhum or rum punch in the US because it has a different meaning here. I think Rhum Arrangé is really nice. Rum arranged, or as I like to call it, rum with stuff in it. But I think that, you know, the packaging is really beautiful.
Yeah, it is.
Seeing it kind of tells you what's in it, you know?
Right. That's nice.
Yeah.
Good choice.
If you wanted to know where the flavor comes from, it's from that piece of fruit that's inside it. That's it, really. But, you know, 29-30%, it's not a spirit. We had the issue with this lemon, thyme, and ginger, which it's now called, which you mentioned before, it's originally called Amoris Elixatura. And the TTB does not like those words.
Oh,
they didn't like that?
You're kidding. The TTB? Oh.
Yeah, weird. Can call something, I think, elixir or elixatura.
Yeah.
So
its current name is Amoris Elixatura, and it's a Latin word meaning elixir. So it's kind of a medicine. So the TTB told us, you shouldn't let people think that your Rhum Arrangé is a medicine. So you're not allowed to use.
They're like Latin in America. No.
So that one's being relabeled.
and legally, we were obliged to put on the label a rum with natural flavor.
Yes.
Actually, I did like. Yeah. One of the things that I think is hard with stuff like this is that people see it and they're like, oh, it's a flavored rum, and like. on one hand, okay, it is a rum that has been flavored with something, but when anyone hears the term flavored rum, or at least I won't speak for everyone, for me personally, I hear flavored rum and I think rum with flavor essences added or something like that, something, it just has kind of an artificial kind of connotation, I think.
Some kind of powder went in there.
Flavored rum. So yeah, like how do you, Kate, you kind of mentioned it there, you call it rum with stuff in it. And I feel like that description and just like seeing the bottle with the fruit kind of like helps overcome that hurdle. But I don't how do you guys think about that?
I mean, I think that you're right. I think that if you say flavored rum, like I immediately picture, a retail shop's shelves with, 25 flavors of X big brand rum. And this is very different than that. Yeah. And guys, I mean, I was super skeptical about this project because it's so different from what we usually do. If you look at the Clahan and the Hamden estate and our typically pretty, nerdy bottles that we love and that we are known for. And I saw this project and was like, man, like this is just so far from what we typically do. But then I tasted it and I was like, gosh, this is delicious. I got really excited about it. And I don't know, I think that in rum, it's important to open a lot of doors for people and allow people to have different ways into this category that we clearly all love so much. And I was thinking about this range just sort of as a different way to open a door for someone into the world of rum because, maybe drinking something like Hamden Estate or Rhum Agricole could be a bit challenging for a beginner. And this is such a lovely way to enter that category. But, as Johann said before, and as you guys tasted, like the rum is absolutely there. Yeah. The rum is not hidden. It is, it's absolutely there. And I brought a bottle of that passion fruit vanilla to a party the other day. I poured it in a pitcher. I topped it with a bottle of bubbles and instant smash hit. It's so delicious.
I have a mental image of you walking in with shades on and just this bottle out of nowhere and just not saying anything to anybody. You walk right into the center of the room, bloop, pop it, put it into the bowl, and bam,
the party starts.
There's the party. Poof. I feel like that's a Kate Carey thing.
You're not entirely wrong.
Hey, there we go.
No, I did when Johann, when you brought that up earlier about you can encounter versions of this where there's almost kind of a neutral taste to the spirit that's in there. And I had to taste a bunch of flavored whiskeys recently, and I noticed that with some of them. I was like, if you hadn't told me this was flavored whiskey, I wouldn't have known there was whiskey in this. And on that note of this being something that can introduce people to rum who are less familiar with it, especially, a category like Rhum Agricole, for example, which less people are familiar with to begin with in the US. I did really like that with this. In all of these, no matter what had been added to it, the rum was always there, and there was that balance between the rum and the flavors and everything, and they played off of each other. So that was one thing that I did really appreciate about this.
No, that's good. Thank you. But I think it's a great challenge for us to introduce this brand and this category in the United States of America because you guys, you are not really familiar with this kind of product. When in France, Rhum Arrangé is something big. The market is big. You have 100 of brands developing right now. So it's something really common. Rhum Arrangé, almost everybody have been able to try Rhum Arrangé when they are going on holidays to La Réunion, to Martinique, or to Guadeloupe. They are obviously tasting it and bringing some in France, and now at the retail shop, you can find numerous brands of Rhum Arrangé. So it's really easy to find them. One, I would think that it's a great challenge for us to introduce it in the US. Is that because in fact nobody knows this kind of product, so we are really also obliged to rethink how to build the brand, how to educate people on this kind of product. And I really like the way that when we introduce this product to Kate, I remember you also create new way of consumption. When you told me that you were mixing the passion fruit vanilla with some champagne, I was like, I would have never done this. Why not? And it seems delicious. So I really like the fact that since you really don't know the product, you're also inventing new way of consumption. And it shows that the French market could also benefit from it, because maybe now it's too... The market is so big. Everybody is doing kind of the same thing. So by also introducing a new way of consumption, I think it's also a great opportunity for this category to grow, and also to attract more people, because you will be able to give them a lot of different way to drink this product. You can drink it neat and rocks. You can use it in a cocktail. We did some bakeries also with it, and it was amazing. So I think it's a great challenge, but it's a great opportunity for the category.
I did want to ask, because that's one thing that I struggle with anytime I encounter a rum product that isn't just rum, is how do I best use this? Is it typically, in Martinique, for example, is someone typically just going to have Rhum Arrangé by itself? Are they going to pour it over ice? Are they going to put it in juice? Kate, you mentioned champagne. That actually sounds great now that I think about it. But I'm completely clueless in trying to figure out like the best way to deploy this. So what are like some ways that you recommend?
Before, knowing the Kate recipes, I would have tell you, the Rhum Arrangé, you drink it neat or on rocks. Clémence and Thierry, the producers, are recommending, to put the bottle in the fridge just before the tasting, in order to have it chilled, but not diluted with the ice. So this is the most common way of consumption of Rhum Arrangé, and I would say that maybe 99% of the people are drinking it like this. But now that we have introduced Rhum Arrangé in the USA, now you will start to see people drinking it with some champagne, as a daiquiri, or with some vermouth also. I mean, it's unlimited. I think that especially because you have so many different recipes, that you can really imagine a lot of different ways to drink Rhum Arrangé. And I think that our main focus should be also to work with some bartender and to develop new way of consumption, because a bartender is like a cook, so he's an innovative guy or woman, and they would be able to develop new way of consumption, and this is what is great. And I think that maybe nobody ever thought about having a bartender using this kind of product, and it's a good opportunity, I think.
When I saw these, I think that, in America, we love to take a thing and put it into a cocktail. And so I had a really fun sort of R&D day with my buddy, Justin Alford, who's a really talented photographer. And we went over to an R&D bar and just really had a blast playing. And I was making vieux carrés and old fashions with the Criollo, which is banana cacao, and the rum raisin, which is my low-key favorite. I mean, 3 kinds of raisins, 3 kinds of rum agricole, and Jamaican rum. Like, sign me up. Yes, please. All day. And then I also did a really fun R&D project where I took the stuff left over, the stuff that was still in the bottle, and I had a chef friend come over to my house, and she made 4 different recipes with the stuff in the bottle, because I was imagining people would say, okay, so I drank my bottle, what do I do with these raisins left in it? And we made buckwheat pancakes with flambéed raisins and walnuts. It was so good. We made a pork chop with a reduced roasted pineapple and basil sauce.
I need better friends who I can use this stuff with.
You get like a bonus out of every bottle with that.
Yeah,
so
totally.
Cool. Yeah,
absolutely. But yeah, I mean, I think that America's really good at innovating when we see a thing really great. We love to be creative and see all the different ways to do it, even if maybe it's a new concept to people who have been enjoying stuff like this for a long time. But I think it's a really exciting thing. And I mean, I will also say that at the end of the day, there's only about 400 bottles of each of these in the whole country.
Oh, wow.
And it's only in 9 states.
I was going to ask, like, where are you in terms of like the US takeover? Yeah, we just shipped 1 pallet of each over, so there's not a whole lot of it. But, if you want to try something new and try something that is kind of the first time that, there are some similar products. I've seen some really beautiful stuff from Puerto Rico, I think you mentioned before, around, their
is some really cool rum with stuff in it brands. But this is the first Rhum Arrangé to hit the US market to my knowledge, which I think is just really cool considering especially what Johann said, where there's over 100 brands of this circulating around France right now. This is a really fast growing category globally. So maybe there's some really fun potential in the US. So it's kind of a situation I think that Johann and I find ourselves in with a lot of stuff where it's, here's this really delicious thing, and then we see how people react. We see what people want to do with it. We kind of let the market tell us in a way, which it was always my advice too when I was opening bars in my past life. You can only build a bar out like 75%. You can put up the walls, you can do the decor, you can make a drink list, but it's going to be your clientele who comes in and sits and wears out the seats and scuffs up the tables and kind of tells you the vibe of your place. I think that leaving a little bit of room for that in all walks of life is important.
Yeah, 100%.
You gotta have the interaction.
you can't completely 100% pre-engineer the vibes. There has to be a natural development that goes along with it.
Totally. That's the best vibes always.
Yeah. Well, this has been really awesome learning about more about Rhum Arrangé, more about Arhumatic. And I think it's just this whole kind of, I feel like for a long time, in terms of, what's available commercially in the US, we saw a lot of just the kind of mass-produced spiced rum, mass-produced flavored rum without totally fully natural processes. And it seems like we're seeing more stuff, more variety in recent years between, projects like this. We're seeing like botanical rums and things like that. It seems like people are approaching this from a variety of different angles.
Quality over quantity.
Yeah.
Totally.
In a lot of ways,
It's good to see more products where the rum is still treated well and put at center stage. So I'm excited to see what happens with it. Before we let y'all go, was there anything aromatic related we didn't get to? Or I know you're as we mentioned earlier, you're working on all kinds of other stuff, all kinds of projects with distilleries that our listeners love very much.
Give us the dirt.
Anything?
All the tricks up the sleeve.
Yeah. Anything else you can share that you're excited about?
Any dirt, but first of all, there is definitely more aromatic to come. Hopefully, this summer I will be able to ship more pallets. And since we are seeing a great potential in the USA, I think that my main objective for 2023 will be to develop a special recipe for the US market.
Ooh, where do you start with that?
Next year, this will be the 5th anniversary of La Maison Velier in the USA. So
you can start with us.
Right here, guys.
We're in the US. That's great.
So we need to do something special for our 5th anniversary, and we are working on it with Kate.
We will eagerly await that. Well, thanks again to you both, and everyone listening, keep an eye out for Arhumatic. If you see a bottle, there's only 400 over here, so that's
only 400.
That's a rare find, so go ahead and grab it.
Let me know what you think too.
Yeah.
I'm so interested to see how people enjoy them. I definitely, as we said, recommend chilling the bottle before you drink it. Really nice when they're just ice cold on a hot summer day.
Yeah. And then you chill afterwards with it, right?
Yeah,
chill
and then
before
you
and chill after. Will is shaking his head.
I told you.
I gotta get in something semi-silly
earlier. You were ahead. I think Kate praised your first bad pun, but I can tell she's having to force a smile through that one.
I'm here for it. Give me all the puns all day. I mean, also it's aromatic.
That's true.
Exactly.
That's true.
And I didn't even touch that one, so you're welcome. Yes.
Well, thank you again both so much. And everyone keep an eye out for Arhumatic. All right, thanks everyone so much for listening to another episode of the Rumcast. Hey, guess what? It's about that time of the month again. We have another Rumcast happy hour coming up for our Rumcast patrons. That's coming up on Thursday, May 26th at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. So if you want to come hang out with us, drink some rum, we're going to focus on rums made outside the Caribbean on this call. So I think it's going to be pretty fun. Get into some interesting stuff. But yeah, if you want to join us for that, head over to patreon.com/therumcast. That's patreon.com/therumcast. @Rumcast. This is kind of a bonus thing we do for what we call our cask strength patrons. But you can get all the info for that there. And as always, we'd love to hear your thoughts, comments, questions, reactions. If you are one of the people who's able to come across one of the 400 bottles of Arhumatic that has made it to the US so far, let us know what you think of it. You can email us, host@rumcast.com. That's HOST@rumcast.com. John, where can they find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube? What are we? How can people look us up? How can they send us messages and talk to us?
We are at the Rumcast on all those platforms, Will, as well as YouTube, and you can find us on any of those. We try to engage as often as we can in there and post everything we can also to those channels. So if you're feeling froggy, feel free to leave a comment on any one of those platforms.
Feeling froggy?
Yeah, you never heard that before? You're feeling froggy? That's an expression. Like if you're feeling like you want to do something. You never, Will, you've never heard feeling
frisky.
Froggy? No. Frisky's much different. We're not that podcast, Will. We're not that podcast.
Yeah, but okay. Yeah, froggy. Okay. I just need to translate for whoever's listening and is like me and is like, I don't know what it is to feel froggy. So
yeah, well now you know. If you've made it this far in the episode, please leave a comment on one of our social for Will and tell him it's not the first time you've heard feeling froggy and what it means. So we appreciate it. We appreciate all that you do to listen and support our show, and thank you so much for listening. And we will see you next time on the next episode of the Rumcast.